Hello and welcome to Dan Talks United. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel. Please click on the notification bell so that you don't miss future videos. So, didn't want to go into what would happen if Amorim was sacked or should we move on to another manager. However, the way we start the season, losing 1-0 to Arsenal, drawing 1-1 to Fulham, and then losing to Grimsby Town. Yes, it was 2-2, end of the game, but as we all could see, or as we all saw, we lost to Grimsby Town on penalties. So it does sadly bring me to having to do a video like this where we talk about moving on. Now, one thing I'll quickly say is that I'm in two camps. So I'm in the camp of we sacked too many managers. It seems like we keep sacking managers ever since Fergie left. We're just continuously sacking managers. However, in the past, I believe that we've taken too long to sack managers, and it's impacted sometimes results, sometimes chances of finishing in the top four, sometimes maybe even chances of winning a cup. So, yes, it's early. Yes, it's only 3 games in. But I think if he was to lose against Burnley, I think we have to have some serious conversations. So, yes, I think Rúben Amorim is under a lot of pressure. The big question now is if he was to be sacked, who should replace him? So, today we're going to go through what I would say are leading candidates. We can go through their pros, their cons, just look at what would be the best fit for Manchester United going forward. So, as it stands, United are stuck in another rebuild. I'm sick of hearing about rebuilds. We are in a rebuild, but it just feels like when any team isn't doing very well, we're in a rebuild, and then you end up with a new manager, and it definitely becomes a rebuild because that new coach coming in potentially doesn't like the players that are already there. Players don't gel with that new manager, etc., and so forth. So yes, we're in a rebuild. Technically, Amorim has had 5 signings since he's joined. I would say out of those 5, 2 of them are probably really the ones that he wanted. So that's Cunha and Mbumo. I'm not so sure that Sesko would be his first choice. I'm not sure how much Dorgu was forced on Amorim in a sense because he would have wanted Quenda, I'm sure, from his old side. And then Diego Leon is just a young player that's got some promise. So I wouldn't really class him as one of the signings that Amorim would have really wanted. Yes, Amorim probably would like to have had a fresh 11, fresh first team. Not obviously that isn't realistic with our budgets and the state of play for our finances. However, he was insistent in 2 number 10s. I understand why he wanted 2 number 10s. He wanted 2 10s that have got energy, that have got skill, that can pick up the ball, that can carry the ball, that have got goals in them. And I think there is elements of that Bruno couldn't fulfill. So yes, Bruno has got the numbers, he's got a bit of creation there, but he hasn't got the same level of tenacity, the same level of the ability to pick up the ball and beat a man. So therefore, I do understand why you want the 2 number 10s. So obviously, the players that Amorim would want, he would want to stamp his identity on Manchester United. similar to what he did at his other clubs. So Sporting being the most well known. Um, Obviously, structure needs to put his structure into place. But obviously, currently the results just haven't been what they should be. There is massive sort of pressure around this 3-4-3 system, if you want to call it that. Often it just looks like he's just got five at the back anyway. So in terms of the wing backs are not fully being utilised in the way that they should be. Um, so in regards to his system, we're probably not seeing it yet as it stands. We're still yet to see it. Obviously, the excuses are that he hasn't got the players to play it, but we have to start seeing something, or as people are calling for, a variation. So what I'm not saying is that okay, do 4-4-2 for example. I know teams aren't playing that these days, but as an extreme example, I'm not saying Amorim completely change your formation. But what I'm actually starting to say now, because I was also quite stubborn saying, no, it's 3-4-3, it's worked really well at Sporting and other teams that he's coached, and it's been successful in the end. Players have got it in the end. They've looked really attractive when the system's playing out. They've done, especially Sporting anyway, they've done pretty well against Premier League sides and in Europe, generally speaking. So you could say there's an argument to say that there isn't anything wrong with the system. The only thing I'd say though is there is a very small sample size of Amorim's style working in the Premier League. So there's been different variations of it. So, for example, um, Conte at Chelsea, he had that sort of five at the back, three at the back, whatever you want to call it, and he's won the league with Chelsea with it. Now, difference is that for me is that the system was obviously different, but Conte is a different breed when it comes to a coach. The what he demands from his players, the level of intensity, and just seeing what some players turn into when they're under Conte. So I mean, Lukaku is a massive example of that. What he was doing at Inter Milan and how he got that Inter Milan side to play so well in Europe and to win the league. You can only, I mean, look at one of our own, Scott McTominay, and how he's been playing for Napoli under Conte. Is just a really intense coach. He demands a lot from his players. I suppose he demands respect because of his background, his abilities that he's had at different teams, and his track record. Players will buy into his philosophy and his system. So I just feel that he has that aura and he has that ability to get players to play for him. So I think that's where the difference is. And I think Amorim coming in, young coach, hasn't really won much, has a nice style from looking at other teams, but no real track record. Maybe the aura isn't there. So therefore, is it going to work in the Premier League is the question. Looking at some candidates then. Um, you do hear a lot about the Crystal Palace manager, Oliver Glasner. Um, Not really a household name. Can't really say too much about his past or his track record. I suppose one thing you can say is that he has stabilised Crystal Palace. He's won a cup with them. They do seem to play organised, decent football, but it's always a different scenario at Manchester United, as a lot of coaches have found out. So, as we know, we've had Moyes, which just want to forget. We've had Louis van Gaal, who had a very distinct style in terms of how he wanted to play. There were times where we did play nice football under Van Gaal. We've had Mourinho, who is the special one, is the one that wins wherever he goes. That hasn't worked long term anyway. We've gone with the sort of past legends thing with Ole. There was times where we looked really exciting on the break in transition, or other teams or other fans would say that we were just counter attacking. But there were times where we were through transition, and it was nice football. We had really exciting front three at the time. When you look at some of the performances that we got out of Martial at times and Rashford at times, just the speed and the ability to get from one box to the other. So yeah, there was times where it was exciting, and then you got the whole Ollie at the wheel, Rio doing his thing, Ollie at the wheel, and we were all doing it because it was good vibes. We had the good vibes against PSG when Rashford was playing amazing, but again, all short term, nothing long term. We've had again going back to legends where we've had Carrick having a go, we've had Giggs having a go. Nothing seems to work. We had Ragnick, who the king of Gegenpress, raved and reviewed across Europe for his style of pressing and getting the best out of teams. Obviously, better known for being a sporting director, but tried to do this part-time coach thing. Again, didn't work. We've tried Erik ten Hag, who did really well at Ajax with his distinct style of play. Known for a lot of interchangeability with players. Known also for playing with 2 10s at times as well. But you liked that sort of interchangeability between players inverting, that sort of thing. Inside to outside, outside to inside in attack. Again, he was less stubborn in a sense because he quickly realised that his system wasn't going to work with the players that he had. He tried his system, didn't work, then went back again and sort of abandoned his principles. So it shows where we're at with coaches, and it's very difficult to pinpoint what the issues are. But moving on, or going through the other candidates, I mean, I don't want to bring this person up, but it got mentioned so many times. Gareth Southgate. Now, this is definitely a big no for me, but I can see why, mainly media, but I can see why there's certain sections maybe of the fan base that might not, or may, should I say, accept Southgate, especially when things feel at rock bottom. I think when things feel the way they do now, where you lose against Grimsby, I think you almost get into that situation where you'll take anything. And Southgate feels like you'll take anything for me. If I want to say some good things about Southgate, maybe is what you hear about how he stabilised England. Got that camaraderie, got them together, got a unit of players that got along, and he got that harmony. Obviously, in terms of England, got them to a couple of finals, but just couldn't get them across that line. I just don't think he has that sort of winning pedigree for me. So it would be a big no for me, Southgate. Michael Carrick, obviously, he's had a really short stint as like caretaker manager. Did all right, actually. His record wasn't too bad, to be fair. But again, it's ex-player, a legend, if you want to call him that. I'm not so sure that works. Was that Middlesbrough? Did he get sacked there? Is he ready for a big job like Manchester United? I'm not so sure about that. Now, one candidate that I wouldn't mind, if I'm honest, is Unai Emery. Now, appreciate when he's coached at Arsenal, didn't particularly go very well, but then he's shown his skills in Spain, for example. Is it Villarreal that he coached at? Seems to do really well in Europe with the clubs that he manages. Since coming back to the Premier League and coaching Aston Villa, they've looked really good under Emery. Good style of play, been pretty strong in Europe again. They've done pretty well in the Premier League, finishing in European spots. So he does seem to get a lot out of his teams quite early on as well, because that's one thing I'd say about Amorim up to press is that okay, came in partway through the season. I get all that. Let's move on from that. But I still feel that we should have seen something more than what we've seen up to now. Now he's had pre-season. Okay, you could say that players could have come in a little bit earlier, but I still don't see enough when I'm watching Manchester United currently. So I just think Emery has that knack of showing identity in his teams and his teams being relatively hard to beat but playing decent football. So that would be a candidate that's up there for me. A lot of people talk about Xavi, however you want to pronounce it, old Barcelona coach and legend as a player for Barcelona. Seemed to play the game in the same way that he's played at Barcelona. Really controlled football, attacking football, easy on the eye. Now, is that realistic? Xavi, I'm not so sure that that would happen. Um, wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm just not so sure that he would succeed in the Premier League. It's a completely different beast. I appreciate that there's a lot of pressure in Spain as well, especially coaching one of the first or the second side. There are always one or two out there with Real Madrid. There's going to be a lot of pressure there, and I don't know what happened towards the end, but it did feel like he was buckling a little bit under the pressure. But Barcelona are one of those teams that don't mess around. They'll change their coach when they're not happy. So Xavi, yeah. And then last one on the list, which is very out there and I can never see happening, but a lot of people would like it, is Jurgen Klopp. Now, hear me out, guys. I know he's coached Liverpool and Liverpool are our enemy. I get it, and I'm also not saying that I personally would want Klopp. However, we all know that Klopp's a really good coach. He's a good man manager. He got a lot out of Liverpool. He had a bit of a slow start, but he did get him playing good football. There's an identity there in his football. Okay, he could have won more leagues, for example. However, we all can see that his brand of football was exciting, and you could say was very similar to the way that Manchester United would have played back in the day. So as much as it's sort of yeah, one of those ones where it's out there and probably very little chance. What do you guys think? Put it in the comments below. We can go through it in the future. But would you guys have Klopp? Would you guys have Southgate? Would you have Glasner? I think, like I say, a top pick could be Emery, but there is other options out there. There's not a lot out there at the moment, but there is other options out there. I haven't discussed people like Allegri, for example, who's possibly out there and available. There is one or two other managers out there. People talk about Zinedine Zidane, but again, I can't see that. I don't even think he'd be bothered about learning English, to be honest. I don't think he's bothered. Yeah, there is other candidates, but they're the ones that we're talking about today anyway. So, like I say, if there's anybody else that you can think of, any other coaches that you think would be ideal for Manchester United, any coaches that you think would fit what we're trying to do, because what we've got to remember as well is that we have changed our system. It's very alien to what we're used to at Manchester United doing this 3-4-3. But one thing that needs to remain and be a constant is that we've got to play attractive football, quick football, fast football. We've got to be hitting teams on the break. We've got to get our fans in Old Trafford up off their seats like they used to be when you used to have people like Ronaldo down the flanks and Beckham and skulls in the centre of the park, for example, Andy Cole scoring goals, last minute winners from Solskjaer. We want all that back, and that's our DNA. And one thing we can't forget to do as well is having that continuation, that conveyor belt of youth coming through and utilising our youth. So that's why, as much as I'd be okay with Kobe Mainoo going on loan, I wouldn't want to see him leave the club permanently. I think we've got to maintain that ethos of trusting our youth, always having a youth player in the matchday squad, on the pitch even better as well. But we have to keep that philosophy throughout. We've got to have some form of identity that remains at this club, and we have to try our best to sort of forget about things under Fergie. We can't forget Fergie, but we've got to sort of move on from that. But how do we evolve from those days? How do we bring some of that back, but evolve at the same time? And I think that's where we've struggled so far, is to get that mix, that blend. Still sceptical, as I said before, with the Ineos setup. It was nice to see that we've got people in charge that have got some football nous. We just need to get it all together now. That ethos, that philosophy, that mentality is going to run from the top right throughout the squad. It's got to seep into the youth squads. I don't want to be seeing the youth teams playing one brand of football, but then the first team playing a different brand of football. It almost feels at the moment that there isn't a trust there that Amorim's going to be around long term. So it's almost like, no, you keep playing your brand, we'll play our brand, but you're not going to get that smooth transition. And I think we need to get our club to that status, that standard. I am fed up of looking at City or looking at Liverpool or looking at Arsenal and just thinking, I want to be them. And before you get carried away, I don't mean I want to be them. I just mean I want our club to act a bit more like them in terms of being a proper club, being a club that's focused on the best. We always had the best of the best. We had the best coach in Alex Ferguson. We had the best players. We had the best training ground. We had the best stadium. And where we're at now is, I'm not sure about the coach. The stadium's falling to bits. Okay, the training ground looks nice, but that's just one component that we've got right at the moment. So I'm going to bring it to an end there, guys. As always, as a new channel, please hit that subscribe button. It's going to help us to grow as a community so that we can do more together. So thanks again for watching Dan Talks United. Please like, please share, and please hit that subscribe button. And I will see you on the next one.